Hey, what's our
We're
order?
live.
Oh, we're live now.
Oh yeah, we're live.
In a big way.
And that's my controversial take on cancel culture. Too bad the stream missed it.
And that's what I really think about. And that's what I really think about Mel Gibson.
Wait, where was the treasure hidden? Oh. Chuckles.
And that's why I was agreeing with what Kanye West said. Oh.
An insightful take, Zach.
All right. Let's rock and roll. It's going to be Grace and then Michael for the order. Do you not want to go first?
No.
Okay, we'll go Michael and then Grace.
Thanks.
Oh man, this is a lot. This is a lot of responsibility.
Grace.
Right,
you forgot your name on the podcast. I'm priming up my Jerry Seinfeld impression because it's kind of the same as my Jimmy Stewart impression. And we're gonna have that.
There's gonna be so much of that. Everybody do their Jimmy Stewart. Everybody do their Jimmy Stewart.
This is for the live streamers, but I was looking up Jimmy Stewart last night because I was like, where the hell is that accent from? And he is born in a town called, like, maybe the most confusingly named town of all time, which is Indiana, Pennsylvania. So from Indiana, Pennsylvania, you sound like Jimmy Stewart.
I'm from Indiana, Pennsylvania. It's a beautiful, lush American town. Yeah.
That is adjacent to Jerry Seinfeld.
Indiana, Pennsylvania. George, do you believe this? All right. Maybe there's 18-year-olds there that I can date. Anyway, here we go. Michael, Grace.
Alrighty.
In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 431 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I'm here with
Michael O'Malley.
Grace Winburn.
In today's episode, we're going to be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we're going to be continuing our Ernst Lubitsch series with 1940's The Shop Around the Corner, which is going to be filled with Jimmy Stewart impressions.
Yes.
Very exciting. Real quickly, we have on the site now, if you would like to read capsule reviews from myself, Andrew, and Reed from TIFF, head over to cinematary.com. We have all of those. One pertinent one is that they're about to put out Knives Out Glass Onion, or Glass Onion Knives Out, whatever the hell it's called. And so we have a review of that, as well as my review of The Fabelmans. The Fabelmans came out, I think, in limited release last week, but is getting a wider release this week. So both of those movies, check them out. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into movies that we saw this week. Michael, this is one I talked about a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to get your take, and I figure we can go a little bit deeper into the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes. So do you think I should recount the plot, since maybe not everyone is dedicated enough to have listened
Grace
to
needs
the
the plot.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the most recent movie directed and written by one Martin McDonagh, who did, like, In Bruges was the good one that he did, but he also did Seven Psychopaths.
Seven Psychopaths is his brother.
Is it really? Mm-hmm. Dang. One of those Irish guys did Seven Psychopaths.
He did. So Martin is Ebbing, Missouri, and In Bruges.
Okay, well, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri is not good. In Bruges, I remember being good, but I haven't seen it since, like, I was in high school. But this one is great. This movie is great. So it stars Colin Farrell and Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, and they're on this island that seems to be inhabited by, like, maybe 20 people or something like that. The small, like, provincial island off the coast of Ireland in the early 20th century during the Irish Civil War. And one morning, or I guess one afternoon, Colin Farrell goes up to Brendan Gleeson's house, and they're old drinking buddies. and he's like, let's go to the pub. And Brendan Gleeson is just ignoring him. And come to find out, Brendan Gleeson has decided that he doesn't really like Colin Farrell anymore. And in fact, he wants to just spend his time composing his like folk ballads on his violin.
It's super funny. She's like, I don't want to be your friend anymore. He's like, what did I do?
Nothing. I just don't like you anymore. And so the whole, like, it begins as kind of a joke. Like it's like almost like a skit or something. It's not like a skit in terms of like, it's not like hacky like that, but it like takes this premise and just like drives it into the ground and like burrows down into this deep, like eventually very sad place. But for a long time, it's this comedy where Colin Farrell is doing his Colin Farrell thing of being kind of like a lovable goofball guy who's just like, well, I got to make him like me again, and so he keeps on like bothering Brendan Gleeson, who, I mean, understandably so. Like, these guys have been together for like, I don't know how many years, and it doesn't seem like there's too many other people that Colin Farrell can be friends with on the island. There's like this kid who's kind of a, like, I don't know, like,
he's the town idiot, you know.
Yeah, he's like the town idiot, and which is good for Colin Farrell because it seems like he's next in line for being the town idiot. And so there's a lot of really good comedy like throughout when Colin Farrell just keeps trying to reconnect with Brendan Gleeson, and it just kind of escalates as Brendan Gleeson gets increasingly frantic to try to make sure that he never has to talk to Colin Farrell again. And eventually it gets very sad. Like it goes to like somewhat extreme places in terms of like the destruction this does to these two men as they as one tries to reconcile and the other tries to, not have anything to do with him. And it ends up being really sad and really poignant by the end. And I thought it was really good. As probably I indicated before, like, I'm not like a huge Martin McDonagh fan. Like, I think this is definitely my favorite of his based on my memories of them. I haven't rewatched any of them, but like, this is really good. And I remember you liked it too, Zach, right?
Yeah, no, I really liked it. Yeah, I'm kind of.
Oh, you saw it too, Grace?
Just now. I feel like I just watched it.
Oh, great. Yeah. Yeah, well, I would recommend actually going and seeing it too.
You should go see it.
Colin Farrell particularly gives like this really good performance that, like, I'm sure I'm like a good performer, but like he's just like a hair above me, if you can believe it.
Also in the looks department for you. Just a hair above you though.
Just his hair.
Just a little
bit. He's like actually like shockingly good. Like, I like Colin Farrell. This is not like a dig on him, but like, this is, I think, my favorite performance by him as well. Like, it is so funny, but it's also so very sad. Like, it is like just like, as I mentioned, just like a deeply melancholy role from him as he just tries to, like, by the end, he's just a lonely guy. Like, and he's not even that funny anymore, but the whole time he's mostly been funny, and the slide into loneliness really snuck up on me, until by the end, the movie kind of panned back figuratively, and I realized, like, man, this sucks for this dude.
You mentioned in your Letterboxd review, I also didn't really know I don't know enough about like the Irish Civil War to kind of understand how that plays, and if it really has.
I went on a Wikipedia dive after this movie because the movie keeps doing these things where it keeps referencing the Irish Civil War, but it's never part of the plot, and so that's like dinging my like English teacher brain. I'm like, this is a metaphor. They keep referencing this thing that doesn't have anything to do with the plot, and it must be. And like, there's definitely something going on where like there's something about like the falling out that happens between these two people that's meant to be a like analogy to the Irish Civil War, which is going on at the time. Which, like, I'm not like an Irish historian, of course, and so what I say should be taken with a grain of salt. But like, my understanding of the Irish Civil War is that after Ireland, like the Irish War for Independence ended, there were competing factions within the nationalist parties in Ireland about how their relationship with Great Britain should be, and that's how the Civil War broke out. And so, like, that kind of maps onto this idea of like these two men who were friends for a long time are now suddenly at odds. in the same way that like these, factions in Ireland who had all had a similar cause, aka the liberation of Ireland, are now at odds over this next step. And if there were someone who were Irish here, I'm sure that they would have a take in the same way that like we all had takes about the racial politics of Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, that I think that maybe Martin McDonagh didn't realize he had stepped in, maybe. And so I am not confident at all in saying like what this movie's doing other than that very broad gloss. But I think it also just works as a character drama too. So if you're like me and I'm a dum-dum about Irish history, it still works.
Yeah. I'm reading now. Somebody asked him in an interview if the ending where the two friends have a falling out that's so severe it like leads to bitterness, then violence, then irreparable harm, is like a metaphor for the Irish Civil War. And Martin McDonagh said no.
So. Okay, he says no, but why did he said it when he did? Why are they constantly referencing the Civil War? Like, that seems, I don't know, man. There's a lot of creative choices in this movie that are weird if it's not a metaphor. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, I would read this interview, another interview that mentioned it in The Atlantic, but I don't have an Atlantic subscription because I don't live in Brooklyn. So.
Oh, hey, fun fact though, if you use Firefox, you know how there's like reader mode on Firefox that like eliminates all the pictures and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That gets you around the paywall on The Atlantic. You hit that reader mode and refresh, and then all the text is there.
Maybe next time. From me. Breaking news coming from the Cinematary podcast. No, I really liked it, and ever since I saw, I'm kind of want to see it again at some point soon. I do want to. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but I do want to revisit In Bruges, which I enjoy. I think this one's a little bit deeper. That one's really fun though because it's just a lot of like swearing and violence.
There's a lot of swearing in this one too.
There's a lot of swearing in this one also, but like it's just kind of like Colin Farrell is also kind of a lovable dullard in that as well. But plus also that one has Ralph Fiennes as a like also swearing a bunch, and so that makes it like triple fun. But that's more of like a fun movie. Yeah, I'll probably rewatch Ebbing, Missouri, even though I probably don't need to. But that was also one that left me feeling very kind of just inside. But this one I think is great. I think the two lead performances are great, but you mentioned the boy, the kind of town idiot character, but Barry Keoghan, who's the actor, like steals every scene that he's in. He's
really good. He's doing
really good.
He's doing kind of a Colin Farrell thing where he's like sneakily building this like character study that's devastating, but the whole time he's hilarious doing it.
Yeah. And what a year for Colin Farrell, because he like has this movie, which is a relatively serious movie, even though it's funny at times. And then he also was the Penguin in the Batman movie where he went,
oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that.
What are you doing here? He's also super fun in that also.
Oh man, I'm glad you brought that up. I had totally blanked on that.
What are you doing to me here?
I do want to say, so those three performances, Gleason and the other two are really good, but also the actress who plays the sister, who is, what's her name? Carrie Condon.
Mm-hmm.
She's really good too. Like,
she's also really good. Yeah,
she's kind of like this long-suffering sister. You can tell is kind of like holding what remains of the family estate together, because like Colin Farrell's character lives with his sister, and their parents are dead. They don't seem to have any other living relatives, and they just have this very small like herd of cattle and some other livestock, and that's all that they got. And she seems to be the one who's like keeping it all together, but she also is a big reader, and she definitely has like ambitions beyond her station. And so there's this kind of sad kind of undercurrent with her too, where she feels a responsibility toward her home, but is also perpetually frustrated at like just how small everything is. And that develops in interesting ways too. And she's really good. I liked her too.
She also like brings some levity to it because she just immediately is like, this is just a stupid fucking male pissing contest. And is constantly just going like, come on, guys, are you that stupid? And Brandon Gleeson's just like, I have to throw my fingers. Yeah, it's great. But Banshees of Inisherin, it's in the old cinemas now. So if you can go see it, Grace, go watch it. It's fun.
It's good.
It's good.
Sure. We almost, my dad and I, we almost went to go see that, and instead we watched 2001. So.
Do you want to transition? Is that
I'm not saying that, but I'm just letting you guys. Here's a little bit of like, no, damn it. Y'all aren't done. I'm sure you have so much more. Or are you done?
That was it. That was
this is a good movie, but maybe not as good as 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah. I apologize to the audio people. This was a really good visual gag, you know.
Describe it to them.
Yeah. No, we can come back to you. I thought that was a really nice transition, though.
Thank you. Oh, great. Yeah. Okay, well then, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Take it away, Grace.
So, Grace, you watched 2001: A Space. Tell us, this was the first time you'd ever seen it, and you and your dad just plopped down and were like, "We're gonna take this journey together."
Yes. I would like to really quick give a shout out to my dad, because he's like he listens to these episodes that I'm on with you guys, so I know he'll hear this. But he's the whole reason why I have any sort of interest whatsoever in film. And he, one night, I think he ran the projector when they showed this at UVA Cinema Club when he was in undergrad. So
when's Grace's dad going to be on the podcast? That's the real
I don't know. He should be. But so I talked about like, let's watch a movie together. It's something that we love to do. And it's always so hard to pick something between the two of us. I had told him that I need to watch more sci-fi. What's more sci-fi than 2001?
Yeah, that's true.
So,
a lot of science, a lot of fiction.
A lot of science, a lot of fiction. And that is just so not what I reach for when I go to pick a movie. Here come my They're making a brief cameo. This is actually, you know what? I shouldn't say that I don't like sci-fi, because this is my cat Barbarella.
There you go.
So that's not entirely true. I like very specific, sexy sci-fi, I guess.
Yeah, there's no Jane Fonda in this movie.
Yeah, there's no sexiness in 2001. It could use some sexiness.
It could. They could stand to sex that up just a little bit.
First real hot take coming out of you for 2001.
Yeah, hot girl take. The first real hot girl take.
Yeah, a lot of bone imagery wasted.
Yeah. So we watched this, and it was I think I enjoyed myself when I was done like hitting my inhaler. I just got like so out of breath, like trying to match breathing to all the various like, you know, inside the suit you can only hear him, like the respirator, like it stressed me out.
You were trying to like breathe like when he was in the spacesuit?
It just started like I was hearing it, and then I started matching my breath to it. I don't know. It's the movie magic. Like I got swept up in it all.
It's that Kubrick touch, as they say.
Yes, it was that Kubrick touch. Where did he touch me?
Okay.
Well,
so you and your dad are watching 2001.
So we're watching this together, and it was. I had more fun listening to him tell me about the movie. He knew a lot about it. He explained a lot of the shots, and that was super enjoyable. It also helped me because I don't want to make myself sound dumb, but like I really don't know if I would have been able to like keep up. Like the chapters helped me like pace myself.
Yeah.
But
which one was your favorite? The space one, the middle one,
the whole middle one, actually.
When he's like
the one with the computer.
Yes.
Yeah, with Hal.
With Hal. I really enjoyed that. That was thrilling. I was frightened.
It's good.
It was very scary. Like for for such a long epic, it's very quiet. There's not a whole lot of dialogue. It's all action. It's the pacing. It's the sounds, and I was just very scared, and I yelling at the screen, and what's gonna happen? Like, watch out for Hal. Like, I just got really taken up, but I think that was probably my favorite part. But to go all the way back to the beginning of time, to the beginning, I don't know. I was just so confused. I'm like, what is this giant prism?
That's the thing.
What is this? This is freaking me out. I fear what I don't understand, and this is.
Did your dad have a theory on what the prisms were?
Oh yeah, he's like, you notice how it shows up at every point of evolution, when they make tools, when they reach the edge of time, man is evolving, or no, first it's tools, then it's space travel, then it's the edge of the universe, and then it's
babies.
Back to. We are one with time. Time is us. We are infinite. We're made of stardust. Whatever that metaphor is. But yes, that was his theory. He's like, it appears at each point of, when man is on the cusp of evolving, like it is there. Does it guide evolution? Does it help? Does it hinder it? And I was like, oh, I'm afraid of computers now.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. No, not him, but
my first laptop that I got, I named HAL 9000. Like, it was, you could still like name the CPU or something. Like, that was like a feature on it.
And you were like, I'm gonna test Destiny a little bit and name it HAL 9000.
Yeah, it didn't do shit.
I'm gonna put a lot of faith.
I showed that computer who was boss.
I'll just reaffirm for the podcast listeners that the first time I watched 2001, Andrew got mad at me because I checked the World Series score in the middle of the it's a whatever the sequence, when he's traveling through time and space. I was like, let's see how the Giants game's going.
I mean, is that not like man's use of tools? You were just following the impulse of the film.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing it. He was traveling for a minute. I was like, all right, well, I'll come back to this in a second. I just needed to check real quickly. Other things are happening in the world.
It is the kind of movie where you can like, I'm going to do something and then come back and probably the same thing is happening.
Yeah. That traveling, that kind of did go on for a while. It was beautiful. I was like gripping this. It was like, this is gorgeous. Like, it was stunning to look at. I sort of felt myself like falling into the visuals. It was lovely.
Listen to the Blue Danube and everything.
Yeah. Also, I laughed when like the very opening sequence where it's like that dun, 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 dun. 'Cause like to see it in its like original form, like that sequence when you see it parodied and everything else was like, honestly, I was like, oh, I get it now. That was also another big takeaway was like,
you caught all the references?
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get it now. Like, that definitely helped.
Do you like the match cut when he throws the bone up in the air and then it swirls and swirls and swirls and then becomes the spaceship?
Yes.
Or actually, when I first watched, oh, go ahead.
Well, after it happened, my dad was like, "Did you see that? Rewind." He's like, "Isn't it great that I can do this?"
We got to get your dad on the podcast now.
I know.
Yeah.
When I first watched the movie, I had a lot of trouble with because I had seen so many references to 2001, like including like there's a whole Simpsons episode that like references a bunch because Homer goes into space and stuff. Like I had a hard time taking it seriously for a while because like it had been so thoroughly parodied that I had a hard time separating that in my head from the actual movie.
Yeah, it is one that's so well, it has that going against it, and then it just has like the, like the film person, like it's 2001. It's very important. You need to reckon with it. And you're kind of just, it's got a little bit of that going against it as well. I think it seems like Grace, like you're kind of just like, it's a lot and I don't know how do I feel about it. And I'm supposed to like have a firm opinion.
Yeah. And I just can't like, sci-fi just so isn't me. I don't feel like I am anywhere near qualified to have any real sort of like opinion on it. Like I really did enjoy.
Sure, you
Well,
can.
there were it was beautiful. I really enjoyed the like Pan Am like parody with the like Space Am,
Yeah.
like the space flight attendants. I loved that. I thought that was so cute. I want to be a space flight attendant. Like that. I
Yeah.
guess that's my
It
big
seems like a
takeaway.
nice gig.
Yeah, that's what I aspire to be a space flight attendant. Absolutely. Like, send me up.
It's it's a little unbelievable now because there's so much room on like the spaceship. Like that wouldn't be like Delta Space would not be that spacious. Let's just say.
Spirit Space.
Oh my gosh, Spirit Space.
Spirit Space is the cargo on Delta Space.
Can you guys just imagine what what might have happened had the airline industry not been crippled in our real 2001?
So, yeah. Jesus.
God.
Well, you know what else was happening in 2001? 9/11 and the War on Terror. And really the 2001 A Space Odyssey of the War on Terror is Billy Lynn's long halftime walk.
A plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're so good at
We're so good at transitions.
We're so good at transitions.
So this is one that's been kind of on my watch list for a minute, just because I've just been kind of curious about it. Nadine has talked about it. She's a big fan of this movie. But this was one. I think this was the movie Ang Lee made. Let me double check. It's the movie he made right after Life of Pi. So like he makes what is it? He makes Life of Pi. He makes Brokeback Mountain. And it's like Ang Lee, top of the world type situation. And then he comes back and he makes Billy Lynn's long halftime walk, which is adapted from a book of the same name. And he's also utilizing the high frame rate, the 120 frames per second technology, similar to he used it in Life of Pi, correct?
I don't think he did. Well, maybe he
Okay.
did. I don't know.
Well,
I
Anyway,
never went to a theater that had it, so.
No, I didn't either. But pretty much what it's supposed to do is it's we're used to seeing 60 frames per second. That's like what our kind of comfortable viewing experiences, or at least what we can kind of handle. And so 120 frames per second is double that, and it kind of is just supposed to not completely distort the images, but create this. And it does, even in like a regular version, like I watched of the movie, it does create this. It almost feels like a filter, like this kind of unnatural filter to it, which kind of works for what this movie is. So the movie is Billy Lynn is this 19-year-old. He's gone off to Iraq. This is happening in 2004, so this is 3 years into
after
the War on Terror. Yeah. And what has happened is the sergeant, one of their what is it, battalion, their group, their posse, their group's sergeant, played by Vin Diesel, is shot in this firefight, and this camera catches Billy Lynn running over to, because these two I guess Al Qaeda members are like are trying to take him away somewhere, and Billy Lynn like runs over, kind of fights them off, and then like they see him like shooting at other enemy members. And it kind of captures like the whole American psyche. It's like, oh, this is like the American hero. He's standing up for American ideals, et cetera, et cetera. And so he and the rest of his battalion are touring around America at this time, just kind of showing up, being American patriots. And the finale of this is they're going to appear at the halftime show of the it's not the Dallas Cowboys, but it's the Dallas Cowboys Thanksgiving Day game. and they're going to be like, you know, incorporated into the halftime show that is a performance by Destiny's Child, where you never see the faces of them because it's not Destiny's Child. And that's just the whole like entertaining element of it. But it has like, and so a lot of the pretty much the whole movie is him going through the motions of the day of, you know, going to this halftime Thanksgiving Day football game, and but also he's flashing back to his time in Iraq, but also his time when he came home immediately after the event to see his family, who also lives in Texas. And predominantly, those scenes are him and his sister, who's played by Kristen Stewart, who is kind of the catalyst for why he enlisted. Because there's a long story, but she kind of like she had to have like a lot of surgeries after this car accident, and it led to Billy getting into a situation where he was either going to be arrested or had to enlist in the army. And so it's a lot of whenever he's back home, it's a lot of conversations between him and his sister, played by Kristen Stewart, who is very like, you don't need to be like, you don't have to do this. Like, this is, you're just going to get yourself killed type thing. But then you have him kind of flashing back to when he's in Iraq, and kind of the camaraderie that he has with his fellow soldiers, predominantly this sergeant who's killed, played by Vin Diesel, as well as one of the other commanders, played by Garrett Hedlund. And I don't like the movie's it's not perfect by any stretch, but it's a fascinating movie in terms of like war on terror, Iraq, Afghanistan, you know, subject movies made in America. You know, Ang Lee, you have this technology, and I think part of what turned people off from seeing it is it's a pretty anti-war movie, but also you had like this technology that does make it look kind of noticeably different. It looks very, it's like you kind of have this a little bit of a loss of reality to it, but that works because you have a lot of these sequences where these soldiers are like having their PTSD triggered over, you know, fireworks displays at the football game, or people just kind of crowding around them to, you know, get autographs or talk with them, or you know, the easily the best sequence of the entire thing is the actual halftime show, where they're like doing this American Patriot celebration, and they're literally just having to stand there while Destiny's Child is performing. And you have like all these pyrotechnics like shooting off and things like, and you have one of the, you know, you have multiple members of like the battalion kind of like starting to freak out because you know, you have this incredible, like, it's cutting between the performance and the firefight that they were in Iraq. And it is this very kind of surreal moment because for the most part, the Iraq sequences are shot pretty normally, but then when they're in like the football stadium, it's you have this 120 frame per second technology going, and it doesn't feel like, you know, it feels like something's off with what's going on. You know, a lot of the movie is dealing with this dichotomy between, oh, we greatly respect these American heroes, we love the troops, et cetera, because they did this thing, but there's only so much that we're gonna offer to these guys before we're just kind of like, all right, whatever, like we've given you all the praise and all the stuff that we can kind of give you, so like, can you go off now, like go away. Because a lot of the people, a lot of the characters that they're engaging with don't want to actually engage with like what's actually happening in Iraq. They're more, you know, they're very happy kind of dealing with it from the sidelines. And so that's what the big character in this is, the Steve Martin character, who is pretty much playing Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, who becomes really interested in their story and is like thinking about making a movie and all this kinds of stuff. And you know, it leads to kind of just this blow up because Billy Lynn and his other soldiers are just kind of like, no, you know, over the course of this whole day, like our story is just being exploited to kind of make you all feel like you're a part of this fight. You're like you're doing something for this country. For the Steve Martin character, it's like, no, you're just some rich asshole billionaire who said, "Oh, I would have loved to have been in Vietnam, but I wasn't able to go, and so this is how I like to give back," type situation. And I don't know, it's I think it's more fascinating than it was like, this is a good movie that I would like to watch over again or something. But as like this piece of of American movie talking about Iraq and the war on terror, it's pretty fascinating. It's just like this stark difference from not only just like the like super pro war Iraq movies, even stuff like kind of in the middle, like an American Sniper. Like this one is very much in its own category where it's very anti-war, happening at a time when the war is still going on, because this came out in 2016. So it's kind of a fascinating watch just in that regard, as this anti-Iraq war movie.
We really haven't had a lot of those, at least in the mainstream, like at this level of release, or at least I don't feel like we.
No. I mean, this one bombed in the U.S. box office. It did pretty well. It made its money back globally, but it bombed at the American box office. I think it's it's a movie that it's not American Sniper. They're not going to want to go see that.
Right.
And it's just kind of like I said, it's a strange movie a lot, and like I can see why people would get turned off by it, but I found it kind of fascinating because it's very messy. A lot of the dialogue sequences between characters feels unnatural. A lot of dialogue sequences between like the people they're interacting with back during this game and everything seems unnatural. And so it kind of puts you in this headspace of like, I think that's what Ang Lee's doing, is it's like you're kind of like, well, this on like an analysis level, you're like, well, the script's not good, the acting's not good, things like that. And you're like, no, like it's supposed to be like this kind of visceral thing where you're also supposed to kind of be put in the minds of these soldiers who are just kind of having these very shallow conversations with other people. The camera seems very off and kind of almost off-putting and irregular. It has like just kind of crazy sequences where at one point they're like at this Thanksgiving dinner and he's like staring at this like lavish, extravagant, like just overstocked food spread, and he like flashes back to like being in this marketplace in Iraq, and just like this kind of really surreal sequence. And so like on that level, I like appreciated it. Like it's a fascinating movie for that subject. But it's one that's kind of tough to get a hold of. I had to go and pirate this to kind of watch it. It's not streaming anywhere. But if you can watch it, I like recommend it. It's one you gotta kind of hang with, but it's worth it. And there's so many random people in this movie. I mentioned like Steve Martin and Kristen Stewart, but Chris Tucker is in this movie. Evan Hansen himself is in this movie. Tim Blake Nelson shows up briefly. Like, it's got just like this wild cast. So it's a strange one, but I recommend Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. So, all right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we are going to travel to Budapest in the late 1930s and be pen pals with somebody and fall in love. So, after a short break.
So it's not on any streaming services? Or even like rental or anything like that?
You can rent it. Yeah.
Oh,
Wait.
Yeah, Ang Lee's got a weird career trajectory. I'm looking at his movies right now.
He has a super weird in like like his most. I mean, you have like the ones that people know. you got Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Life of Pi, Brokeback Mountain,
Hulk.
But then you have like Hulk, which I really want to watch because people said it's actually kind of this fascinating like the way that he makes the movie compared to like comic book movies today is kind of interesting to watch.
I'm looking. I didn't even realize he had these movies after Brokeback Mountain. Lust, Caution, Taking Woodstock. I've not heard of either of those movies.
I really want to watch Lust, Caution. It's Tony Leung and Tang Wei from Decision to Leave. So I kind of want to watch that, and then these guys like Taking Woodstock. He did Gemini Man a couple of years ago. He's supposed to do this Thrilla in Manila Ali Frazier movie. Like it's just like he just has a weird career. I kind of like it.
You ever seen The Ice Storm?
Mm-mm.
That's a weird movie.
I like Ang Lee, little weirdo director.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
I need let's see where Hulk is. That's streaming because I kind of want to watch that. Ooh, it's on Hulu. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Is it on Hulu like with the? Oh, I bet you it would be on. Yeah, it's on Hulu. I kind of want to watch that though. I've heard it's just like I'm looking at this cast: Eric Bana, Jennifer Connelly, Sam Elliott, Nick Nolte, Lou Ferrigno's in it.
Is Lou Ferrigno like?
He does.
He did the whole TV show. Is he like music by Danny Elfman?
Yeah, like just a strange.
Okay.
It's. I think it's just a strange ass movie. I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah, we need more weird superhero movies. I'll be right back.
This is the one where he eats the nuclear weapon. Yeah. I don't know. What's up, Grace?
Not much.
Are you gonna finish Barry Lyndon?
Yes, I have every plan to.
Did you like get deep into it, or did you just watch like the first little bit?
Watched the first little bit. I've seen up until the first duel, which is like barely anything, but already I loved it. I love like period pieces, romance dramas like that, like Pride and Prejudice, like Wuthering Heights, all of those, Jane Austen, Bronte. I love all of those.
You'll like this one. This one he Kubrick used a lot of like his whole thing was using natural lights. Like he wasn't using
anything with the special lenses.
Yeah, and so like they have like all these like kind of candlelit sequences that are really beautiful because they look like almost Renaissance paintings or something.
Oh yeah,
it's good shit.
And it was just drama. Him throwing the drink. I was like, this is some Real Housewives shit. Like I love it.
Barry Lyndon also just a lovable dummy.
Oh, he's such
so dumb.
He's such a bimbo. He's such
he's such a bimbo.
He's so hot. He's so dumb. Like I saw Love Story. That's also with Ryan O'Neal.
Yeah.
You should watch What's Up, Doc. It's Ryan O'Neal and Barbara Streisand, and he's just he's like the most himbo person of all time in that movie.
Yeah, it's really amazing casting because he's so empty in Barry Lyndon.
He's so handsome.
He's so good. He's great in that movie because he's just so he's just a big old little himbo just trying to make his life.
But yeah, I'll definitely finish it. But it was like after.
No, that's fair. I don't think I could double feature 2001 and then I did one time at the theater. They did what was the Kubrick movie? Hold on. I did do a Stanley Kubrick double feature at the theater because I saw 2001 in the theater.
A film double date.
Once you hit like 2001 though, like his style just becomes so big and slow. And I love a lot of those movies, but they're kind of like a whole thing unto themselves.
Oh, it was Clockwork Orange. It was Clockwork Orange and then 2001.
I've not seen that one either.
But 2001's in a theater was cool.
I imagine that would be really cool.
Oh yeah.
What was I'm trying to think of another one. Have you seen Strangelove?
No.
That one's
super funny. It's really fast.
I also feel like you would love Eyes Wide Shut.
I saw Eyes Wide Shut. I did like Eyes Wide Shut.
I see you digging that one.
Yeah. An aggressive pot smoking hottie, me and Nicole Kidman.
I could also see you getting into Lolita.
I
could see you liking
that. Doesn't it feel weird to say like, yeah, I'm really into Lolita?
That's what I was gonna preface and be like, hey, I don't know what this says about how I perceive you, but I think you'd be really into Kubrick's Lolita.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I feel maybe it's can I say I feel seen? Maybe I do, yes.
You'd probably really dig the good Peter Sellers performance.
Yeah.
Some nice James Mason.
That's what people come to Lolita for.
They come for the
like James Mason's great in that though because he's so stiff. For like and that works perfectly. He's just so like.
Kubrick does a lot of good work with like stiff acting, like intentionally
it's awesome.
Stiff acting.
Anyway, all right, y'all want to talk about the shop around the corner?
Let's do it.
And how? What's the name? Matsuchek.
The boss.
Matsuchek.
Was great and powerful.
Man, I spent half of the movie being like, who the hell? I've seen this dude before, and it's not just because I've seen this movie before, and then it clicked.
He's great. He's also great in also came out this year, 1940, The Mortal Storm. High recommend on that one, but he's in there. He's in that with Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullivan.
There's a lot of good like little bit parts that I was like, it's that guy from that movie, the bank examiner from It's a Wonderful Life. Shows up real briefly.
Well, what's his name? What's his character's name? It's Felix Bressart, Pirovich. He was in. He's in To Be or Not to Be.
Yeah.
He's been in a bunch of Lubitsch's American movies. I like him.
He's good.
We'll see him next week in To Be or Not to Be also. All right, let's rock and roll. I have small notes on this for whatever reason. There's not a lot of scholarship or stuff I could read online about this movie, which was strange. The I went to the AFI, which usually has solid stuff, and it was just like this was a movie that was made, and it's important. I was like, you have a paragraph though. It can't be that important. So, all right, here we go in 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 431 of Cinematary. In this part, we're going to be continuing our Ernst Lubitsch series with 1940's The Shop Around the Corner. Directed by Ernst Lubitsch from a script by Samson Raphaelson. The film is also based on the 1937 play Parfum Marie by Miklos Laszlo. The film stars James Stewart, Margaret Sullivan, Frank Morgan, and Felix Bressart. Alfred Kralik and Clara Novak, which, mind you, Jimmy Stewart, Margaret Sullivan, two deeply Hungarian people, are employees at Maciek and Company, a general store in Budapest. Clara and Alfred are constantly at odds with each other, butting heads and disagreeing on almost everything. Both are enamored of their respective pen pals, who serve as welcome distractions in their lives. Little do they know they are each other's pen pal, and despite our differences, have unwittingly fallen in love through their letters. All of the scenes for the film were reportedly shot in sequence. Lubitsch delayed the start of the movie, though, until both James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan were available. And so while he waited for that, he filmed his movie Ninotchka at the same time. By the time he made The Shop Around the Corner in 1940, Lubitsch's brand of expectation rug pulling had become ingrained in what was expected of a Hollywood movie. Indeed, it is often argued that it was Lubitsch, not D.W. Griffith, who was the true author of the dominant style rather than the dominant technological approach of Hollywood cinema in its golden years. Quote, he invented the modern Hollywood, Jean Renoir once said. The man was so strong that when he was asked by Hollywood to work there, he not only didn't lose his Berlin style, he converted the Hollywood industry to his own way of expression. The Hollywood Reporter in 1940 said, the picture is a triumph for Ernst Lubitsch from beginning to end. We don't believe the industry can boast another director who could have handled this subject as he did. These Lubitsch touches that used to highlight news columns several years ago and which made such good copy for those columns predominate in this subject as much as they did in the same director's Ninotchka. But in this modern little story, Lubitsch seems to have reached his pinnacle of touches, which is the main reason for the success of the entertainment. And in 1940, the New York Times said Lubitsch has employed the film to brighten the shelves where his tidy continental romance is stored. And among the bric-a-brac, there are several fragile scenes which he is handling with his usual delicacy and charm, assisted by a friendly staff of salespeople who are going under resoundingly Hungarian names, but remind us strangely of Margaret Sullivan, James Stewart, Frank Morgan, and Joseph Schildkraut. All told, they make The Shop Around the Corner a pleasant place to browse in.
They scooped your jokes, Zach.
I know, the New York Times getting my humor. So let's talk a little bit about The Shop Around the Corner. Was this anybody's first time seeing this? Because I had seen this before. Yeah, Grace.
It was my first time seeing it. I had definitely scrolled past it before when you're just looking for something to watch. And it's like, oh, it's James Stewart. I love him. Let's put that away to watch later.
Yeah.
And then he told me to watch it, and so I did. And I loved it. I love the quick talking, his girl Friday banter. I love the sweet. I love how romantic it is. It's so funny. I think that Jimmy Stewart is a heartthrob. I would have fallen in love with him were he my pen pal. It was very funny. It was also very sad. I was shocked to have, if this whole movie felt so lighthearted, to have something as heavy as suicide as a major plot point. That surprised me. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked, I tell you. But I loved it.
Michael, had you seen this before?
Yeah, I had. It had been a long time though, and I watched it specifically because I know we'll talk about this later. But I watched it specifically because I had watched and enjoyed You've Got Mail several times, and I was like, I'm going to check out the movie this is based on. And one of the things that struck me the first time seeing it, and I had kind of forgotten along the way, is that the You've Got Mail hook, and kind of like the plot thread that you mentioned with the two lovers being pen pals, but they don't know they're pen pals and they don't get along in real life. I was surprised both when I originally watched it and then now at how buried that is in the movie. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this movie around that, and it's really more of an ensemble piece. And eventually, this kind of plot between the two love interests, kind of pulls away just a tad. But I remember that being striking the first time, and now and this time kind of remembering oh yeah, I was
reading some people who had written about the film, and they talked about how this was, and it's very true of the two Lubitsch films we've talked about so far. I Don't Want to Be a Man and The Smiling Lieutenant, but a lot of his earlier films were very male lead, female lead, maybe romance or whatever. It's a very two-person movie, and this was his first really broad, like you said, it's very much a ensemble. It's not just necessarily about James Stewart and Margaret Sullivan. It's also about the other characters at the shop as well.
Right. I mean, the first scene, in fact, you are sitting at watching the characters walk up to the shop before the owner comes to unlock it. Because they're all employed or connected to the shop in some way. And so just the very first scene, and this makes sense. Like, this is a very like theatrical, like play kind of opening where, we have a set which is like the street in front of the shop, with the window, and we return to the set multiple times in the movie, and we see one person walk up, we see another person walk up, they start having an interchange, and then another person walks up and joins, and in this way, like, we're introduced to all the different characters, but no one character is really presented as the protagonist. And I would say, like, through the rest of the movie, no one character is really presented as the protagonist, even though, like, Jimmy Stewart becomes kind of like a focal point in the movie.
Yeah. And because it's Jimmy Stewart, you're like, oh, he's kind of the star.
Right.
But yeah, no, I
Although this
agree.
is like an early Jimmy Stewart movie, right? Like
Yeah.
1940.
Yeah, he's
I don't
not
think
like a
movies.
superstar, but like
Yeah.
now kind of looking at it, you're like, oh, it's Jimmy Stewart.
It was like this movie and Philadelphia Story both came out in the same year, I think, and those are both pretty big. Like kind of, put him on headlines kind of roles, right?
Yeah, he hadn't done Philadelphia Story was definitely big. He hadn't done the movies with like Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant that he does. This was big, and he hadn't done like It's a Wonderful Life or any of the Anthony Mann westerns or the stuff that like was making him big.
Right.
This is very early on.
He's good though. He's got that charm like right at the gate.
Yeah, the thing I really like about this film, and it's in terms of like the ensemble, it's a good kind of prototype lead into next week's film, To Be or Not to Be, which is also a big ensemble movie as well. But this one, the thing I really like about it is just kind of how like small and subtle it is. It's never super flashy. Even the romance itself is very, not necessarily subdued's not necessarily the right word, but it is very subtle. Like it's not, we'll probably talk about it kind of in the back half of this part, but You've Got Mail, the remake, more modern remake, which I think people are much more aware of, it very much like laces on the relationship, and it's kind of funny, talking about how much of an ensemble piece this is. That one very much turns into just a two-person Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan vehicle. But this one I just like because it's like what 90, 100 or like 100 minutes, and it just feels very much like you're centered in this store. You kind of like being in that world, all the characters, like how they interact, things like that. And it's just, to me, it's a very, even though Grace, you mentioned it goes into a very dark place by the end, it's a very comforting movie. It's a very just like, it's a perfect holiday movie because it's just very comforting, very sweet, very delicate. I kind of like that about it compared to other kind of similar holiday romance movies, kind of like this.
You've got like go ahead, Grace.
Just like relatable and normal. These people are your coworkers. This is the shop that you work at or your neighborhood shop. They're like the way that the two fall in love. It through correspondence, but really they fall in love with each other like at work. Like she mentions later on, she's like, I was starting to fall for you, like because we were working together. I noticed you more. We spend our time together. Like that is so relatable. Like for a lot of people, they find their partner, we worked together. And like that's very comforting. Like that's a very comforting and familiar storyline. Like the correspondence gives it this sort of like fantastic, like this fantasy sort of touch, like, like a romance novel, like through written correspondence, they pour their hearts out to each other in a way that they can't in the workplace or it gives them that freedom that they can't like really vocalize. And that's what makes it like just a touch more romantic than just like your average everyday, like we met at work. But
I do love that she puts out an ad in the paper to get this correspondence started. I do love that ad. Like she's just like seeking an anonymous man. Yeah, it's like a misconnection, but then she gives like a PO box that you can like send email or not emails. Gosh, send letters to. And I don't know. I just think that's so funny. Like,
what was the process?
And so sweet. And
what's the process of filing the misconnection ad?
No. I'm sorry. You keep going. I'm so sorry. Please.
Oh no, it's fine. It's just so funny and sweet. Like I'm trying to imagine like what a modern analog to it is, and I can't imagine it. Like
A
she's
dating
just like
profile.
putting out a PO box, and it's just like, hey, I need someone funny and smart to write me so I can have an interesting conversation. Like that's literally like what the ad says. Well, not literally, but I don't know. I just there. It is kind of like a fantastical thing, like because there's no way in life you'd actually get that. You get some like weird, creepy stuff, like if you did that in real life.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I'm curious what the process was. Like, I would have liked to have seen her, like, going through like certain correspondence, and then like, what was the letter, or like our equivalent, where it's like, what's the message where you're like, nope, I'm not talking to this person anymore. Like, what
But
weird thing did her
but that's
pals
but that's
say
what's kind of
before
like
she
nice
landed?
about it. You know, like you mentioned, like there's this fantasy element. Yeah, it's like it's so delicate. Like she just finds Jimmy Stewart. They don't know each other. They're having like these deep talks about literature and things like that. Like yeah, if this was real, if this was like a real situation, even like not even like you've got mail situation, but just like a real situation, yeah, you'd be like rifling through, you know, guys going, hey, do you want to see my dick and other things, it's
Those
it
awful
could be,
DMs.
yeah, it'd be awful. And so like to me it's like it's kind of nice to just be like, yeah, this is there a reality in this? No, we wish this was the reality. That would be a nice reality,
It
but
was.
it's just like it's just very innocent. Even
It's a
like
very
the
cozy movie,
yeah,
like in that regard.
even the romance itself, it's very innocent, it's very delicate, like I was thinking about like Jimmy Stewart's performance. He, I guess
It's so good.
you can kind of get into the You've Got Mail like comparison discussion, but like I was thinking about why Jimmy Stewart's better in his movie than Tom Hanks is in his movie, and it's because Jimmy Stewart still has kind of an edge to him. Tom Hanks never has an edge. Like he never had. He's very just like, oh, I'm your favorite dad, Tom Hanks. And like Jimmy Stewart, even though he's like the romantic lead in this movie, he's got a little bit of an edge to him. And they have scenes where they're like kind of going at it. And I think you can kind of see that thing that like Hitchcock grabs on with like
Yeah.
stuff like Rope and Vertigo, where there's something off about him that you can kind of tap into, and he doesn't necessarily tap into it here, but it's like you can kind of just see that, and that kind of creates a little bit of an edge to his character that Tom Hanks doesn't have in You've Got Mail.
He's got a lot of Jimmy Stewart performances, even like the really famously like cuddly ones. There's kind of a latent dickishness to his personalities. Like in in It's a Wonderful Life, like of course he's like this saintly character who's always like giving up of himself, but he can be really mean in that movie at times
Mhm.
too. And I think the same is true in this one. Like there's the scene where they're supposed to have met each other at the cafe, but they don't realize they're meeting each other at this cafe. And so he goes up and he's just been fired, and so he's in a really bad mood. And he sees her in the cafe and just starts like kind of picking on her. And they get into this like discussion, and I can't remember, like she says something about, well, I have Anna Karenina and you wouldn't have read Anna Karenina. He's like, oh well, you read Dostoevsky? And she's like, no. And she's like, well,
Wow,
uh,
wow, you haven't read Dostoevsky. I can't even say it.
right. Exactly. And I think like I will say, like, Tom Hanks does not have this very much in You've Got Mail, but Tom Hanks has that quality in some other performances where you have the like kind of like cuddly dad Tom Hanks like bristling with this like latent meanness, like in like Catch Me If You Can or maybe The Post or like some of those movies.
Well, in terms of like similar movies, he definitely has that in The League of Their Own, where he's very
Yeah,
bristly for most of the movie.
right, exactly. And I really like that, like when Jimmy Stewart has that energy to him, which he definitely does here. And he's not like full on Vertigo like you said, but it's there, and
Well,
it's
yeah, you can
enough
kind
to
of
make
just
him
see
interesting.
you see it like you described in a couple of the interactions. Like he is very mean at times.
There were two times where I was just like on the edge of my seat, just like completely like focused in on what he was saying. It's with the one scene where he's talking about if you've ever gotten a bonus, and you hold the check in your hand until you open it, you're a millionaire. Like I'm just sitting there on. There's no sound. Like there's no it's just him talking in that like kind of hushed whisper, like he's telling his friend a secret. And I was just so interested in everything he had to say. And then again, when he like gets up and close and personal with Clara, like the way he holds her and like how he's, quiets down, he sort of whispers, like you definitely see that sharpness, that edge that you guys keep talking about, like that we'll see later on he'll bring out in these later performances, but he has it there. And it's, I almost want to see him like fly off the handle in that one. And he does when he pushes, what's his name?
Into the pile of music boxes. Like, I think that's a great
hysterical.
payoff. The music boxes, it's like the Chekhov's gun, like Chekhov's music box. Like, you've seen that music box the whole movie, and then the whole pile of them go off at the same time.
I was almost gonna like write for a Letterboxd review, like that Russian folk song really takes like hits in that entire movie. Like it's just constantly.
No one wants to hear it.
No, nobody wants to hear it. No, it's the kind of Lubitsch touch, the kind of rug pulling where, just kind of and that's what like the movie's not super. I mean, it's linear, but also just kind of weird because it's just like 1 second he's like, yeah, I'm cool with Jimmy Stewart, and the next second, the Frank Morgan, the Matichak character is just like, fuck that guy.
He's cheating on.
Yeah,
my wife's cheating on me with him.
And it's very like out of left field, like you kind of, and like that's what makes, but it works because it's so out of left field that Jimmy Stewart's also just like, what's going on? Like what happened?
I was so confused. It's like, what do you mean he's not inviting? Like Mr. Magic isn't inviting Jimmy to dinner. Like I was so confused. I thought it was that that Clara like was the new like golden child with her sales ability there for like a split second.
The sequencing of that is a little bit weird. Maybe I missed a detail, but you don't actually find out why he's mad at Jimmy Stewart until the private investigator comes in, right?
No.
Yes.
No. Yeah, you don't learn, and that's why. And that's where You've Got Mail's a little bit better because it at least shows like a little bit of the progression into why they're angry at each other. This one does, it just jumps immediately from like they hire Margaret Sullivan and then it like kind of time jumps to like 6 months or 8 months later, or maybe not even that, like 3 months, because it was getting close to the holiday season anyway. And he's like mad at him. But
maybe this is a good part. Maybe this is a good like transition point into comparing the two movies, because like a big part of the plot of You've Got Mail, and it's been a few years since I saw it, so those of you who just saw it can maybe add in details, but he's basically like opening a Borders bookstore, like next door to her like locally owned like independent bookstore, and that's why they hate each other is that like fundamental tension. And in this movie, it's weird because like the Tom Hanks character, who's like the jerk like businessman, is Jimmy Stewart's boss, basically, right? Like that guy gets subsumed into Tom Hanks's character in the You've Got Mail, and there's not a lot of actual reason for why these two people dislike each other in Shop Around the Corner, other than just they kind of don't get along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, You've Got Mail is much more explicit. And it's also trying to like say a bunch, because that's why I say like this movie, like Shop Around the Corner, is much more cozy. It's, it's just it's very like light. And this one's kind of trying to say stuff about the advent of the internet, in the early part of the 21st century.
Am I remembering right? Isn't the title sequence like some really heavily aged CGI like zoom in of the
computer and like you dial up,
spy games, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on right now?
I love that trend in the 90s of just like throwing like wildly inappropriate CGI into an otherwise a movie that wouldn't need it.
Yeah, it's strange. And so, but one, it's trying to say something about like the advent of the internet, and then two, it's trying to it's also like kind of doing this, big box store versus small store, like
gentrification is bad.
Yeah, very early gentrification look, without kind of defining it in the gentrification terms that we would be doing now. which is a little bit more explicit. But also, it's also a weird parallel because they spend the entire fucking movie going to Starbucks to get coffee. So
Yeah.
it's like save your local bookstore, but your local coffee shop can go fuck itself, you know?
They meet up in the local coffee shop. They have their
That's true.
they have their meeting where she's reading Pride and Prejudice with a red rose instead of Anna Karenina and a red
Which that
carnation.
I was while watching that You've Got Mail today, I didn't realize how much they lift from the meeting scene in
Oh yeah.
The Shop Around the Corner. Like they literally lift lines.
Yeah, my
Mhm.
wife was watching Shop Around the Corner with me, and she's a big You've Got Mail fan, and she was she was like the scene where in that scene where his friend is kind of looking in the window and like
Mhm.
describing her to him, like apparently like
Carbon
I don't
copy.
remember this, but
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle says the exact same stuff.
Yeah.
And he says that, and he does the whole same sequence of like, well, you know, do you like her? And he's like, I mean, yeah, she's fine. But he's like, well, if you don't like her, then you're not gonna like this girl
Because it's her.
because it's her. Like it's
Which
the
is a
same.
great line.
Yeah, it's a great. But no, it's really funny. The whole sequence in like even when Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan are interacting, it's very much like Jimmy Stewart and Margaret Sullivan. It was just very funny after watching it the day before. I'm like, oh damn, they actually like lifted a lot of this for this sequence.
It was
There
just
are
so
though
good.
there are
You know?
though like lines in You've Got Mail. One of the things that You've Got Mail does that this movie really doesn't do is you see a lot of their correspondence with one, like you hear a lot of their correspondence with one another, which you don't really hear a lot of the letters in Shop Around the Corner. But like there's all these sorts of turns of phrases and stuff from the movie You've Got Mail that are kind of lodged in my brain, um, like for instance, after they have that scene where Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks like meet at the cafe and they have a real falling out, and she says they both say nasty things to one another. Like I
Mhm.
think it's her. She has this thing where she says like, "I'm never able to say exactly what I think when I'm mad, but I did it that time, and now it feels terrible," or something like that. And that's like I remember that like that sticks in my head as like a good line from the movie. And um, I think that's original, right? That's not in Shop Around the Corner.
Mm-mm.
No.
Well, because You've Got Mail spends a lot more time in like the again like Shop Around the Corner is much more subtle. It kind of wraps itself up pretty quickly. You've Got Mail hits the point when like I mean it hits the point where her shop closes and his shop's still open and his store's still open, and then it like goes on for a while because then they're like briefly friends and then they're like, oh, let's meet the pen pals and now we're in love. Which is nice because it's like the end of the movie and it's like, oh, you know, we're in love now. You still put me out of a job, but you know, love
Yeah,
prevails.
She's got
yeah.
her new career path. She's a writer now.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's good. I still
For
feel
whatever
bad.
reason, I thought I remembered because I hadn't seen You've Got Mail in years and years. I thought I remembered it where he like bought the shop and like was operating it, which I was like, oh, that'd been a nice gesture, but no.
Mm-mm. As
There is
someone
like a
who
really
bought it 30
interesting
minutes ago.
there's like a really interesting parallel, or not parallel, but like the times have changed or something, right? So you have like the movie that comes out in the 40s is much more focused on like labor
Mhm.
than the movie that comes out in the 90s. The movie that comes out in the 90s is all about like big business and the cost of big business and that sort of like kind of neoliberal thing going on. Whereas like the 1940s one is very concerned with like wages and who gets fired and who doesn't and that sort of thing. I don't know, like they're two movies that are both very, very much products of their time in that regard. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked you have to have a termination letter. That was interesting to hear. Like,
Yeah.
management changing hands and, prove it and you just see it in black and white, bonuses and everything. Yeah, definitely pro labor. That was and then them talking about like job shortages too. Like that was also very like that stuck out in my mind.
Yeah, I like the scene where she's complaining that she would have to find another part-time job because she wouldn't be able to because by losing the part-time job that she has, she wouldn't be able to afford her apartment. And I'm like, so you're affording your apartment on a part-time job right now?
Oh yeah, and You've Got Mail, and she's like, and I'll have to move to Brooklyn. Like, ugh.
Yeah, and you're like, well, you won't do that, but also you're gonna need to get like 3 part-time jobs then.
There
Just
is
have one time.
there's a scene or a line in in Shop Around the Corner where um, Jimmy Stewart's pay, and you hear this because it's his termination, like his pay in a month is like 250 whatever the currency is. I don't remember what it is. And there's another line in the movie where the boss keeps having to wire his wife more money because she keeps running out of money, and he wires her like 1,000 of the things, whatever the monies are, like we'll say dollars, like. He wires her $1,000, and I remember hearing like Jimmy Stewart's salary is like 250 a month. I was like, that guy just gave his wife 4 times the amount that Jimmy Stewart makes in a month. Like, there's like a few like throwaways like that where it really reinforces like the just the grotesque wealth that someone who owns like a successful business has. And I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't remember You've Got Mail hitting the wealth aspect at all. But you've got to know that Tom Hanks's character is loaded, like completely loaded.
They did because
they do. Okay.
He has a boat. Number one, like
he does. You know, he is on a boat for a lot.
He's on a boat. So he has a boat, and it's Fox 3. And then
oh my gosh,
his dad and like when his dad and his dad's new wife, well, they're not married, partner,
his dad's girlfriend,
split up. He's like, okay, I'm gonna live with you, son. And they go on dad's boat, which is the Fox 2, and it's bigger than the Fox 3. So like. Yeah.
They literally, when you meet the dad and like, is it the grandfather?
Yeah.
They're like having like, they might as well just have like cigars and are like, yeah, like it's just like it's just a big old fat cat scene where they're just all like sitting in this office. You see like all of New York behind them, and it's a really funny scene though, like in 2022, because they're just bragging about how they're killing all these independent bookstores and they're like drowning in money as booksellers, and you're like, yeah, that's not gonna last, guys.
Yeah, enjoy this.
Yeah, enjoy this while you have it, because it's not like Barnes and Noble is just like drowning in money right now, like you are.
Yeah. So. Borders. You said Borders earlier, and I was like, damn, R.I.P.
I did say Borders. Yeah, R.I.P. Borders. It is funny, like there's a kind of funny circularity to it in which there's probably more independent bookstores than there are big box like bookstores now. At least like in Knoxville, there certainly are. There's like 3 or 4 independent bookstores, and there's Books A Million and a Barnes and Noble, I think, are our chains here.
Yeah, no, it's that just kind of was making me laugh because they were just over there like they were like oil titans, and you're like, no, you own bookstores. Those are going to go down in like 5-6 years when Amazon starts kicking off.
Well, it's funny too because the movie's so focused on the internet, and the internet is kind of the undoing of that. And I don't think that there would have been any way to know that at the time of this movie's creation.
But it is funny that like, because the Grey Kinnear character is
he's like a columnist, right? He's like some other extinct job.
But he's also exactly right, and also an extinct job. But he's always complaining about like, you know, he's literally his first line is about the internet being the end of Western civilization as we know it.
That thing is not your friend.
Yeah.
Unless it's how.
Also, they really did Parker Posey wrong, because honestly, if I had to pick between being with Parker Posey and Meg Ryan, I would rather be with Parker Posey. She seems way more fun.
Parker Posey's always done wrong. Like, we need a Parker Posey renaissance. Like, I know like people have really been bought into all these other renaissances of, you know, 90s actors. Parker Posey needs to come back.
She didn't work at the Dairy Queen to deal with this, you know.
Said I can have my job back at the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, she didn't work at the Dairy Queen. I know they always have a job for her, but she didn't work at the Dairy Queen to deal with this.
This is like so nitpicky, but this is just like such like a girl thing that I noticed. Like when watching a rom-com, all you do is like pick apart the actors and actresses. But like, okay, somebody overplucked Meg Ryan's eyebrows. They started like too far over, and I could not stop looking at it. That is my one critique.
Fair. Parker Posey's eyebrows, though, how are they?
They were beautiful.
She was fine.
Yet again.
Between the blonde and the brunette.
Yeah, she got done dirty in that movie. I was kind of just like if I had to pick between the two of them, I would much rather be with Parker Posey.
I also thought that she was going to end up with
the Grey Kinnear character.
Yeah.
She doesn't deserve. Like, no one deserves to end up with that Greg Kinnear character. Like, can you imagine
The
living
Greg
with that
Kinnear
guy?
character though is pretty funny though, because like whenever he's on like the TV show and he's like flirting with Jane Addams,
Yeah.
it's such a he's just like he's like, oh, it's TV, that's what they do, they just sweat and flirt with you, and you're like, and she's just like, what the hell are you talking about? But any final thoughts on the Shop Around the Corner? I mean, it's the perfect time of year to watch it. I think
Yeah.
super nice, like I said, super nice, cozy movie. It's like 100 minutes. It's on HBO Max right now.
Yeah.
And
There's a scene that is like close to the like the apex of happiness in the movie, and the snow starts falling. It's just like it's got all the beats that you want to have in a holiday movie.
Yeah. I think of it after reading Scott Iman's book, Hank and Jim, about Jimmy Stewart and Henry Fonda, that Margaret Sullivan was the woman that like Jimmy Stewart desperately loved, but she was always like married or with somebody else. So they never were lining up on both being single at the same time. So they did this movie and The Mortal Storm. And so I just like watched the movie this time going, he desperately wants to fuck her. Because
That's
he
kind of
loves this.
sad too.
He loves this woman so much. Like this was the one that he just like the one who got away. So
That's
sad
so much chemistry. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I miss that. Do you guys feel the same way? Like, sometimes do you see like a romantic lead, like a romantic like pairing, and you feel like there is just like no chemistry between the two, so the directors just have to like make them have sex for us to know that like they are interested in each other. I mean, just that raw attraction between the two of them. Like, they played each other so well. Like, beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, they were great because you think about I mean, Jimmy Stewart, he's Grace Kelly in Rear Window. Not really have much chemistry with Kim Novak and Vertigo. I can't. But even like Katharine Hepburn in those movies, Margaret Sullivan is definitely the one that he has like the deepest chemistry with, and that's because he was in love with her. So, sorry, Jimmy.
Puppy dog Jimmy.
He was just like, I want you to be at my shop around the corner. Never happened.
Little shop of horrors around the corner.
that's the mashup we're looking for. All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode of Cinematary. You can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, at Twitter as long as it is lasting, and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we list all the movies that we talked about in this episode. Head over to patreon.com/Cinematary if you would like to support the show. All that money goes toward upkeep of the site and things like that. Thank you so much to our patrons: Cam, Chad Newsom, Corey Willingham, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Sarisa Arsathi, Titus Arthur, and Tyler Chandler. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Next week we're gonna be diving in to probably I'll be honest, probably one of my favorite comedies ever, and that's To Be or Not to Be from 1942. I just sit there the entire time and laugh at Jack Benny. So not going to be a hard sell to make me watch To Be or Not to Be. So I'm excited.
Sell it to me right now. Go. Just kidding. You already did. I'll watch it. You twisted my arm. I'll do it. Ow, my arm.
It's easy.
Because you twisted it.
I'm gonna end it. We've had too many video references for the audio crowd. We gotta put it to bed. All right. Until next week. Thank y'all for listening.